Hello dear students, welcome to the lecture 7 of Advanced Programming, as known as also Introduction to Programming 2. We'll copy and paste our previous lecture since we will continue from that one. Okay, lecture 6 to lecture 7. Let's also open SQL Server Management Studio. Let's start with renaming lecture. It won't rename everything. It will only rename few things, but better than nothing. It won't rename the namespace, for example. But since we have composed a new folder, then you will be able to easily access each lecture from our GitHub repository. Okay, let's run the application and quickly remember where we have left. If you are remembering, we were using Entity Framework for our database operations. We were learning that. The application is starting. Also, we had designed a database, which was PMS, Patient Management System. We have our tables here. We had designed a register. I will start with improving our salted hashing. So let's see, where is our salted hashing function? Here, inside global methods, we have return user password. Okay, so you see, we are using a static string here. However, the more proper usage would be assigning a random string to each user. So I'm going to make a small modification to this. Actually, this is also fine because we are making it unique with the first name, but I will do something else. Let's say sr random string. Or we can also define a GUID. You wonder that what is GUID. So GUID stands for Global Unique Identifier. It is 128-bit integer, 16 bytes. There are usually so many combinations. How can we generate it? It is simple as this one. Okay. So let's add it to our code where we call this, we call it here. So I will also add a column to my users table. It will be used for salting. Okay, let's call it as salt of PV password. Since GUID is 16 bytes, it should be always exactly how many characters? Let's see it. So let's make a test. Okay, so in here we are going to object. Okay, you see it is already exists. So string. Okay, let's put a breakpoint here. We will get an error probably. Yeah, here. Okay, let's see our error here. So it will be combination of random string. We don't need this anymore. Okay. So for each user, we will be using a unique identifier to salt their password. With this way, we will ensure that none of the user passwords can be decrypted with any hash table, rainbow table. Okay, so the GUID is generated like this. So we can use the string method. It is sufficient. So I will make this as character 36. Okay. Since it will be only English letters, we won't allow null. Therefore, I have to delete the entire table to make that change, because if you don't delete the records, then it will throw an error that it cannot insert null value to non-nullable columns. Therefore, we delete them. If I had allowed nulls, then that save would be possible, but since we won't allow, it won't be. Okay, now that we have modified our table, we have to modify our generated code here. You can do it automatically, or we can also add it here manually as well. But I think I will use automatic code generation. Let's see how will it generate, how we were doing it. We will remember also reverse engineer. Just the rest is by default. We don't touch them. Okay, tables. We are getting all tables. And I am just clicking OK. To update all of these classes automatically, let's see if we have one. Here, as you can see, salt of PV is added. I think it is also added here. Let's see. Yes, it is also added here. Okay, and it has required and string length 36 characters. Okay, now we can continue our application programming since we have updated our code to the latest and synchronize it with our database. Basically, this time we will be using random string and user password. However, we have to save this salt in database as well. It will be simply like this. Okay, salt of PV will be equal to BR salt. You can also assign it like this as well. So we won't be having code. All right. Now when we are doing a login, we will use this approach. So let's start coding our login section. Okay, so this was register. In the login, we will use email and password. So let's make this tab as login. And here we are going to have a text box for login. Put a label. Let's say email. You can use greet. I have teach it that in the previous semester. Okay, txt email, and let's remove the text. Or we have already txt email, therefore I will name it as login email. Okay, txt login email. Let's make it a little bit bigger. It's not important anyway. And then we are going to have password. For password, we are going to add a password box because it increases the security of the application. And let's name it as name txt login password, and then add login button. Login, and you can also add remember password feature to your application. I think I can also show you that. Yes, we can use SMTP of Gmail. Okay, btn login. Let's add a click event. Okay, so in the click event, what we are going to do is I will also add another class here. So let's add a folder to our classes. Okay, so the first folder will be, let's name it as custom classes. You can group them as you want. So I will add this register to here and add another class here as login operation. Okay, so this will be also a public static, and we are going to simply use the same approach. Okay. By the way, I am also using a context, but before doing context, we can do some checks such as if user has entered password, email or not. The controls are up to you. Since I am using entity framework, it will be automatically secure from SQL injection. And what I am going to do is I will use find. Here, find entity type will be TBL users, and it says key value is find. Let's make it like this, TBL users find. Okay, now params object key values, the values of primary key for the entity to be found. Maybe we use search or select. Maybe select is better. Yeah, and here select dot, okay, email will be equal to or where. Let's select, okay, or where. Yeah, I think where is better. I don't know if it will make difference. Let's check it first. Okay, so the find starts by searching local cache. Where always sends query to DB. I see. So this is the difference. You see, you should look for differences when you are doing something new. Also, when we do find, we just provide the primary key ID, which wouldn't work for us. Okay, so this is what we need. So let's read this answer. I like it.
Find has a fundamental difference to where, single, first, etc., in that it will first search for the object in memory and only hit the database if the object has not already been loaded. Thus try to use find, where possible, as it offers possible speed benefits of loading from memory. Find only works with a primary key and doesn't support lambdas, so it is not very flexible. Where is typically used to get a listing of objects. To retrieve a single object, I normally use either singular default, first or default. Single and single or default differ from first and first or default, as they ensure that a maximum of one object can satisfy the criteria, which helps ensure the integrity of the data in the database. They single clauses do this by selecting top two in the SQL query and then throwing an exception if two entities are returned. Note that you should not chain these to the end of the where clause. So instead of where s equals s dot id equals 1 dot first or default, use dot first or default s equals s dot id equals 1.
Okay, so what we need is we will use first or default. Let's also do another search. I see, so this is the approach they have used. It was also in my mind, but I am looking for if there is any special method or approach. Returning the first element, and if it is null or not is the way to do it normally, but maybe there is some other special thing. Okay, anyway, so let's use TBL uses first or default. By the way, we use first or default to get, if it is not existing, it will return default value, which is null probably. Now we are going to write our link expression, pr dot user email equal to main dot takes the login email and pr dot user pv equal to, okay, I see. So this is not the way we like this. We have to use text here. Sometimes I might also get confused. And bool and string. Okay, let's look for this. It says, okay, bool predicate we need password equal to a global methods return user password. This, okay, where we have, maybe we need to group them like this, maybe like this, and okay, does this. Okay, so we have figured it out. It requires single and here we will be using global methods dot return user password. So for this to work, first we have to check whether user email exists or not. How we are going to do it? We are going to do it like this. Okay, we don't need this, and we will call it as we are user email, and then we will continue. Okay, so let's put a breakpoint here and see what happens. We didn't call this method. Okay, so here it will be login operations. Okay, why we can see it? I know the reason. Because I have to add this dictionary to using like this, using lecture custom classes. If you don't add directory, then you may not access it. Okay, now it is accessible. Oh, let's change the name to login try, and we will just pass our main window reference. Let's go to here and run the application and see if we can find email and what object it returns. You see, I don't know how the first or default behaving right now, so I am putting a breakpoint here to debug the application and see what kind of object is returned, and then I will continue my coding from there. Okay, it says no database provider have been configured. Oh, I see. Since we have updated our code, we have to reset the database provider, and each time you do that, you have to do it. Unfortunately, it doesn't put the database provider. Maybe from our options we can edit. Let's see. You see, there were too many options and we didn't look for options, so let's look for it. There may be an option. Okay, you see, include connection string in generated code. I think this is what we need to check, and let's see what happens. Code, you see on the left bottom screen, Visual Studio is displaying generating code. Okay, generated, and let's see. Yes. Okay, so it has also added a warning. It says to protect potentially sensitive information in your connection string, you should move it out of source code. You can avoid scaffolding the connection string by using the name syntax, read from, and such. So I will just comment this out. And now our code is added. First, register Furkan test at gmail.com 1 and 1. By the way, let's look our hash and how it works. I am putting a breakpoint here as well. User type will be patient. Register. Okay, so our password is 1. Random string is Furkan. Oh, okay. So we didn't fix it. Let's first in here. You see how it is important to debug and check, test your application. So I will be passing password instead of the salt of password instead of the user first name. Okay, so the first name will be Furkan Yukara, email test at gmail.com 1 and 1. Register, and now our salt is here, as you can see. And then when we return, the hashed password becomes like this. So this password will not be existing in any of the rainbow of tables. Therefore, there is no possible way for hackers to know this password without brute forcing. Of course, they can brute force once they fully obtain our database. However, it will take extreme amount of times. And let's see. Yes. So this is the salted password and this is our salt. Okay. So let's go to our login now. And at the login, we will check email and password, but we don't check the password yet. So first we are going to find if this email exists or not, and it has returned an object. It has returned the object of the user, as you can see, full values. Oh, I see, we don't have to make another check. It is simple actually. So if we are user email equal to null, I think what else can it be? Yeah, I think null should work. Message box show. By the way, for using message box, we have to add a reference. Windows. and show no such user is found, and then we will return, say error, and then we will check the password if it is correct or not. How we are going to do that? We are going to do it simply like this. We are user email password. If it is equal to global methods return user password, and it will take main.txt login password to string, and then it will take the random string which is in our object right now, which is the salt of password, and if they are equal, it will log in. Otherwise, it will turn an error like this. How we are going to do that? Oh, we have to, if it is not equal, error password is not matching, or let's say the password is incorrect. Entered password is. By the way, you also have to keep login try in database counts, and then if user frequently tries incorrect password, you have to block them. Otherwise, they can try login to your system with brute force and find a lot of people passwords. So it is another precaution that you have to take. Let's also take that as well. So to it, we are going to add another table. What we are going to do is we are going to check how many times a user has tried to log in the system. By the way, normally this would be check it with the registering IP of the user, because in an online system every user has an IP. Therefore, I will just illustrate the system with giving manual IP. So which columns we are going to have to check number of login tries. We are going to allow a user to try logging in 5 times in 15 minutes. Therefore, write IP, it will be same as here, var character 16, not null. Then there will be date of try, and it will be a date time, and combination of these two will be a primary key. Let's see, tbl login try. Now we will also include this to our code. Let's reverse engineer our table again. You see now it is not checking it, including string and everything. Okay, it is done. So in here, if user enters an incorrect password, we are going to add a record to the database. So I'm going to define a constant IP here. Let's add a method here. Return user IP. Normally, we would get IP of the connecting user with the framework we are using. For example, in ASP.NET, get user IP. But currently we don't have that. We don't have anything to simulate that. Normally it is something like this. In C#, okay, it is something like this. You see we add some references. However, in this case, since we are not server-based application, I will just return something for illustration, some valid IP. Let's return this. We can also use call of this method into our register operation as well. Okay. And in the login, we will also get that IP and check whether that IP has 5 try or not. How we are going to check that? We are going to check it something like this. Test results equal to context tbl begin try. We need to select count. Okay. So we are going to do select. Okay, where select dot, or where we can use where as well. Where pr dot write IP equal to global methods dot return user IP. And we need another rule, which is okay, by the way, this is equal and pr dot date of try. Okay, now we can add time frame. So we are going to check last 15 minutes. Therefore, I am going to add minutes 15 bigger than date time UTC now. So why I am using UTC now? Because this way I am globalizing my server date. You can also use local time, whatever the time you are using. Actually, let's also make it more global in our application. What I mean is, in our global methods, I will add another method here, a public static date time return server time. So this way I will have constant time everywhere. It will just return date time UTC now. I will call this here global methods return server. With this approach, we are going to find IP records where they are made within the last 15 minutes, and I just need their count actually. How can we calculate their count? Maybe like this. Yeah. So if this count is bigger than 5, if IP test result bigger than 5 or bigger or equal to 5, we are going to show a message. You have error. You have so many times tried to log in within 15 minutes. Try again later. If incorrect password happens, then we have to add a record to our login try. And how we're going to do that? We are going to do it as add. Now it will be expecting a login try entity. So tbl login try temp try equal to new login try temp try dot try IP will be equal to global methods return user IP temp try date of try will be equal to global methods dot return server time, and we will just edit like this, and then we will save. I think save changes, and then we will return. Yeah, let's see how our application works. By the way, you can also look for the queries that are being executed from, as you know, our provider. Let's refresh our tables and see our login try. Okay, I also have a debug to see if our application working fine or not. So let's try login AA. By the way, that doesn't exist. Okay, IP result is 0. Now it will check user email. Since it doesn't exist, it will just return. By the way, you can also log for invalid emails try if you want to, because with that way they may scan existing user emails, so it would make sense to log that as well. So let's make this into a method here, increase login try. We also need to add the here as well. Okay, yeah, private static. We will just call this here. All right, let's retry. We can also look for the queries that are being executed. Let's also look for them as well. Close this page. Okay, and the profiler, I will just open tuning. Okay, and let's see which kind of queries are being executed. AA login. Let's see the queries. So it opens connection. Select count start means selecting everything, where it is checking it with like this. Here, this is the query it is executing. I would execute this differently, but probably it is the way of executing in Entity Framework. And then it is checking email like here. Then it is inserting into TBL login try, as you can see here. Okay. These are automatic queries done by Microsoft SQL Server. You see insert into values. Okay, these are the values. As you can see, it is here. Okay, no search error found. No. Each time it will add another record. No. Okay, now we have 5. It should give me an error. Okay, error. You have so many times tried login within 15 minutes. Try again. Now we have error. As you can see, another record added. Okay, each time we are getting another record, because we are also increasing login try here. When it is tried, we are forcing hacker or the person with malicious intentions. However, this is also bad because this table may get filled up pretty quickly, a lot of extra unnecessary space. So you should not increase login try here. Okay, it is a bad practice. And just see, because here they are doing nothing simply. They cannot do anything. Okay, now let's change our IP. Yeah, let's add another string here. Okay, now we are going to check our password. You see, when we are checking password, we will check it with the salted method GUID. If everything is fine, we will log in the user. How we are going to do that? So in our global methods, or let's add global variables or login variables, whatever we want. Let's add a login variables class. Actually, we can add it into login operations. So here, let's add some variables. Public bool is user logged will be by default false. Then we can keep logged in user details in the memory. However, that may be dangerous. So I'm going to do something else. Public static. So since we will allow only single user to be logged in at the same time in our application, let's make it as TBL users logged user. Okay, it will be by default null. And if login is successful, here we are going to assign it to your user email. Once when I assign it to this one, after even this using clause, it won't get destroyed, because since this is being referenced to this one, it will be kept by the garbage collector. However, I also need to delete some values so that it won't remain in the RAM memory. How can we delete them? Let's say equal null. So what other sensitive information we may have? Actually, this is also not sensitive. Maybe salt. I don't know. It is up to you. You can nullify the sensitive information so they won't remain in RAM memory. Okay, now we also have the logout user. We can update or display some information on our main window as logout user. So I'm going to pull this down a little bit like this. Then I am going to add a label to here. I will display here some information. What kind of information I will display, I will show you in a moment. Okay, let's make it like here. Okay, and name VBL login status. Okay, so this login status will be updated each second. To do that, what I need to update that label each second, I need a timer. Let's add a VPF timer to our project. And for timers, what we were using dispatcher timers. So I will add it to global method, and here public void start info operations will start a dispatcher, and for to be able to use dispatcher we need to using system threading. Oh, I see, this is not a correct here the correct thing. Okay, it is using full path, but since we have added the reference we don't need it anymore. And now we need dispatcher timer tick. For this new event handler, you can also do it something like this. Show you. Okay, it didn't automatically start it. Compose it actually. Let's copy it. Huh? So this will be private void state, private static void update info label. And here I will add another thing, keep login time. Actually, I can keep it inside login operations as well. Public static date time dt login time equal, I will just set it here, is user logged in equal to. Actually, we don't even need to keep this variable since we are keeping this one. We can keep it. Okay, we have login time, so let's set login time as well equal date time or server time. Global methods get server time. Okay, and then I wonder if we can define an extension to datetime. Let's try that. A public static datetime. Let's make it as start date. And now instead of that, where is our login operation? Now datetime. Okay, extension is struct, therefore it is somewhat different. Class datetime helper, and it will be datetime server. Okay, so this looks like the only way. Turn datetime util now. This, yeah, looks like the only way. So instead of datetime, we will use datetime helper server time. All right, it will be same here, and it will same here as well. Now we are keeping the login date as well. And in our global methods, in our dispatcher, so it will start with every second, like here, interval. And what it is going to do is, it will check first logged in or not. How it is going to check? It will check it with login operations. However, it is not available here. So let's add it using lecture 6.custom classes. Okay, login operations dot logged in user. If it is null, that means that we are not logged in. I also need to be able to access main window. Therefore, I need to use this public main. Okay, actually I will assign this to here, to global variables, global methods. Let's define it here. On here, we are going to use global dot main equal to this. On global methods, we also need to call this. Let's call this in here. Okay, in our global method. Okay, what we are going to do is main dot dispatcher dot begin invoke or label. We can directly say that as well. Libya login status dispatcher begin invoke main dot Libya login status dot content will be equal to something. Okay, not logged in application runtime. For application runtime, I also need another date. Now let's get here. Private static. Okay, up date time and up run date or up runs date is fine. It will be date time helper dot server time. Calculate the runtime as datetime helper dot server time minus update. We will just display the total seconds here and 0 plus seconds. However, the seconds, whatever the second it is, all right, and just return. If user is logged in, our message will be different. And that time, let's say logout user is format. So it will be from login operations dot logout user dot first name of the user and then the dot logout user dot surname or last name. And session time, this time I will use session time, session run time. It will be session runtime will be equal to, we will use login date is inside login operations dot login. Yeah, it will be here. So will be date dot servers. And let's run our application to see if our code is working as expected or not. Okay, you see not logged in application runtime is getting updated each second. If application freezes, this may also freeze. Let's register and then try to log in. First, compose an account. Email will be .furkan.test.com. Password 1. Let's pick as conductors. Register. Okay, user has been registered. We are still not logged in. Let's try an incorrect password. Furkan. Okay. What was our email? Yeah, and I will try a different password. Okay, error. The entered password is incorrect, and we should also see that in login try with our new IP here. Let's enter our correct password. Okay, now we see logged user Furkan Gözükara session runtime 5 seconds. Of course, we should disable login and enable exit buttons. Also, we should disable register as well. This is totally up to you too. Currently, we are displaying everything fine. This is getting updated each second. After login, we can display a logged in message and disable that tab. How can we do that? So let's go to our tabs, tab header login. I also need to give a name as tab login. And here, okay, name tab register. And after the login operation, here we are going to tab login. Okay, tab login is in main. Login enabled or is enabled false. By the way, you should also make this a method actually. So let's just write it for now. Tab register. Making this a method is better because when you add a logout button, you can just call that method. So I will just make this a method call. Yes, that is a better thing. So in global methods here, let's write a method public static void and change login status. Here it is just going to set positive of the enable and oh, you see I am getting error because this is not inside the parent class. You see you cannot write methods outside of classes. Every method is written inside a class in C#. So change login status, and here I am going to simply use like this. So this will just change whether it is enabled or not, and I will call this inside login operations global methods change login status here, and let's show a message show login is success or you have successful logged in. Okay, let's start again. So when I add and logout button, now I can just call that method. Therefore, I will have better control, better efficiency, lesser code, lesser duplicate code. Okay, you have successful logged in. Now these are disabled. If I had a logout tab here, I would just go to there. I should also delete these values from text boxes. Let's also add a logout button which will appear after logged in. So here are status. Let's make it size and add a logout button here. Let's name it as logout, the logout, and okay. This will simply do pretty easy thing, but let's add it also here. Public static void okay, log out. Oh, let's try log out. You see, I can also pass parameter like this, or I can use the reference in the global methods. So what this is going to do is simply it will nullify this logout user equal to null, and it will change login status. Change status, show a message, you have successfully logged out, right? And then there is one more thing that we have to do, which is when we do start operations, we are going to make this button visible. Main.btn logout visibility equal false. By the way, this is invisible. System.visibility hidden. We are going to change visibility. How we are going to do that? I mean, where we are going to do that? We are going to do it in change login status as equal to opposite of visibility. Oh, we can't do it. So what we need to do is we are going to do a switch visibility, and it has automatically generated this code. If it is visible, we will set it as hidden. If it is invisible, hidden, we will set it as visible. Others can remain, they don't matter. Okay, let's run the application and see if it's working or not. Let's try some incorrect login. It says not found. Let's try a different password. Incorrect. Let's try correct password. Yes. Okay, we have successfully logged in and the logout button has appeared here. This message is also correct. And when I try logout, click logout, nothing happens because we didn't call our method. What I mean is, here we are supposed to call login operations dot try logout. Let's one second. Okay, let's change this here a little bigger and this left. Okay, at the beginning, logout button should be invisible because we didn't log in yet. Yes, it is invisible. So let's log in. Okay, and now it is visible. And when I log out, we have logout out. You see this message also changes and these become available. Watch me, I log in. These becomes unclickable. They are not enabled. This becomes visible. Logout button becomes visible. And this session is restarting. And when I log out, you see it returns back to application runtime. Register and login becomes available again, enabled again. I can log in again. So our login system is fully functional right now. Everything is working perfect fine at the moment. However, you see, we are embedding our table names as well into our application code. These may cause some system vulnerabilities. The better approach would be using server-side APIs to do online operations, server-side operations. However, currently we are just learning how it is done. We are also taking every precaution that we can take, but also if this was an application that is connecting with a remote server, we can never add our connection string into our application because this string can be easily found from our exit.
What is a GUID? A GUID is an acronym that stands for Globally Unique Identifier. They are also referred to as UUIDs or Universally Unique Identifiers. There is no real difference between the two. Technically, they are 128-bit unique reference numbers used in computing which are highly unlikely to repeat when generated despite there being no central GUID authority to ensure uniqueness. What does a GUID look like? A GUID follows a specific structure defined in RFC 4122 and come in a few different versions and variants. All variants follow the same structure XXXXXX, where M represents the version, and the most significant bits of N represent the variant. How unique is unique? A GUID is a unique number that can be used as an identifier for anything in the universe, but unlike ISBN, there is no central authority. The uniqueness of a GUID relies on the algorithm that was used to generate it. We'll look at the types of GUIDs later, but assuming a randomly generated GUID, you have about the same chance of getting hit by a meteorite in a year as getting a collision in 10 to 30 trillion GUIDs.
Okay, if you have any questions related to the project or the courses or the lecture, please contact me from our Discord channel, and end of lecture. Hopefully see you next